Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Welcome to Week in Nintendo. Every Saturday, I like to go back through the past week's biggest headlines so you can get yourself all caught up on all things Nintendo. If you're new here and you like these weekly news rundowns, as well as the occasional game or accessory review, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on everything happening with the channel. And with all that out of the way, let's go through this week's Nintendo news. On Monday, we learned that Nintendo would be shutting down Wii U and 3DS eShops in select Latin American countries by July 31st, 2020. Now, if you're not living in a Latin American country, and keep in mind both Mexico and Brazil are excluded from this list, you don't have anything to worry about yet. And even though it could be quite some time before it happens, it might be a good idea to start thinking about any final purchases you'd like to make on those consoles before the inevitable eShop shutdown comes to your country as well. Tuesday, we got word that Deadly Premonition 2 will be coming to Switch on July 10th. We first learned about the sequel to 2010's Deadly Premonition during the September 2019 Nintendo Direct, which shadow dropped a Switch port of the original game that same day. The sequel/prequel of the open world murder mystery series will also reportedly feature skateboarding gameplay, with upgradable skateboard stats for improved speed and landing more difficult tricks. So I never played the original Deadly Premonition, but this does all sound oddly intriguing. Deadly Premonition 2, A Blessing in Disguise, will be releasing both digitally and at retail for $49.99. On Wednesday, Reuters ran an article highlighting Nintendo's recent financial successes, detailing that, quote, Nintendo is expected to see an 80% jump in operating profit on May 7th for the January to March quarter, a fourth quarter profit level last seen in the heyday of the Wii console. So Nintendo seems to be in a somewhat rare and privileged position, with the current lockdown actually helping to grow their audience as more and more people turn to the Switch who were previously disinterested in gaming. The incredible success of Animal Crossing New Horizons certainly hasn't hurt either. Wednesday evening, Nintendo Switch Update 10.0.2 was released, and this is a pretty small update featuring the usual generic stability improvements, but it did address one issue users have been reporting since the 10.0.0 update, which was causing drift for some players while using a Pro Controller. And while I never experienced any of these issues while using a Pro Controller myself, it is nice to see the reported issue addressed so quickly. Thursday, we learned that Burnout Paradise Remastered will be coming to the Switch on June 19th. We first learned about the Switch port during the recent Nintendo Direct Mini, but there's one unfortunate bit of information here. The Switch version seems to be coming with a much higher price tag compared to its PS4, Xbox One, and PC counterparts. Other versions currently retail for around $19.99, but the Switch version will be selling for $49.99. Yikes. And we've certainly dealt with the Switch tax before, but I was already kind of lukewarm on this game, and at that price, I think I'm going to have to pass. Thursday, we also saw the release of Streets of Rage 4 across all consoles and PC to pretty positive reviews, with the game hovering right around 80% on Metacritic. Emu's revival of the beat-em-up classic has been under close watch from fans who grew up with the series on Sega Genesis, and it's great to see this proper return to form. It's also great to see the Switch version being identical to the PS4 release in terms of performance. Last bit of news for the week, and it's not great. Again, we're hearing from VentureBeat's Jeff Grubb that Nintendo is reportedly scrapping plans for a June Nintendo Direct, one that was expected to be coming even in the absence of this year's E3 conference. Citing work-from-home hurdles for delays in production, Nintendo is reportedly letting partner publishers know about the delay of the next Nintendo Direct, and telling them not to wait if they wish to make any upcoming reveals themselves. Eurogamer corroborated the story, backing up claims that the next Nintendo Direct may not come until late summer. And this is pretty rough. There's certainly worse things going on, but for Nintendo fans, this is rough. I really hope we still see those supposed Mario remasters happen this year, but for now, it looks like we're just going to have to play the waiting game to find out more. And that does it for this week's current Nintendo news. Not a ton of good news this week, but before we go, it's time for 20 years ago today, where we take a look back at what was happening with Nintendo 20 years ago this week. Now, last week, I totally messed up. I said that this week we'd be covering a very popular first-person shooter on the Nintendo 64, but I got those dates confused. That won't be happening until later in the month, but this week we will be covering a Nintendo 64 release that I played a ton of, an excellent motorbike racing game that came to the Nintendo 64 on April 30th, 2000. Excitebike 64. Excitebike 64 was the second entry in the Excite series and the first with 3D gameplay. IGN's Matt Casamassina gave the game a 9.7 at the time, landing it the coveted Editor's Choice Award, and going further by saying, Excitebike 64 not only lives up to the classic it was inspired by, it takes it all to the next level with a fantastic 3D engine, delightfully realistic physics, intuitive control, brilliantly detailed graphics, ingenious subtleties, and tons of options. An excellent selection of varied tracks will keep the single-player mode going strong, and multiplayer nuts will go wild over the uphill climb, soccer, and stunt track modes. This game has it all. And I'd have to agree, I think I still have Excitebike 64 plugged into my Nintendo 64 as we speak. It's either that or F-Zero. And it's such a fun racer, and I think it's really aged better than some of the other racers on the console. It utilizes the expansion pack for a high-res mode, so it still looks pretty decent too. So let me know in the comments below if you played Excitebike 64 back in the day, and if you haven't, I highly recommend picking it up. And if you stuck around through all that and like what you saw, please consider liking and subscribing. And until next week, have a great weekend, play some video games, hold out hope for those Mario remasters, and I'll see you next time.